Okay. Yeah, welcome everybody. Alexander and me, we are talking today about the ConfIDent project and the SMW-powered platform that's behind the project. A few words about the project. We are a DFG funded project, which means German Science Foundation funded. We are also working together with the RWTH Aachen. Two of those people here are here today. Two of our colleagues, Wolfgang and Tim. And together we are building this platform, and the platform in general is about and it is an information platform for academic events like conferences, and is supposed to help researchers and scientists help find the right academic event or conference. So for the agenda today, I will go briefly through why we are building this platform in the first place and explain a little bit about our vision, where we want to go. And then throughout, we will show you where we are at the moment with the platform, and Alexander will go more into detail with regards to the technical infrastructure. Okay, so the first use case, as I already mentioned, is that we want to support researchers with finding and searching for academic events. So as you might be aware of, it's not as easy, especially for early career researchers at the moment, to get an overview at first about their discipline and what kind of conferences and workshops and whatever kind of academic event there is, to get an overview about that. So that's where we want to help. That means we want to have a good coverage also about what kind of events are out there. And when I'm talking about events, I mean, of course, conferences, but it's not exclusively meaning conferences. We also want to capture like workshops and every kind of event type you can imagine, symposia, congresses. There are so many different names for events in general. And we want to cover, that's our vision. We want to cover all of those. At the moment, we basically focus mainly on conferences as an event type, and we also limit our scope at the moment to computer science and mostly and mobility research. But the vision is to encompass more. Okay, let's go for next slide. Yes, for finding the right event, we of course have to provide information, and the best case would be to provide all the necessary information researchers need to make a decision where to go to which event. And you can imagine this demands a very sophisticated description in the end. So we also need a kind of sophisticated schema. If you go to the next slide, yeah, I can just point you to our metadata schema, the concept of it, and we're also building an ontology. Shout out to our colleague Philip, who can't be here today, but he is very he's thinking deeply about what is an academic event and how can we describe it. So if you want to look more deeper into that, you can have a look at that. Yeah, thanks. For the next use case we want to cover is that we want to archive academic event information. So as you can imagine, for most organizers, it is not really, they don't see that much value anymore in keeping conference websites online after the conference occurred. So not everybody, but a lot of providers of conference information websites or conference websites in general, they shut the website down, and then the information about it is basically lost. And we want to provide this historic information about academic events because we think that is also very helpful for researchers to look back into the past, and then it's helpful for them to evaluate, okay, these people, for example, went to a conference last year, or these kind of papers were published there. So this might be relevant for me next year. One of the big problems we face in the conferencing culture in general in science is the problem of predatory conferences, similar to predatory journals. You might have heard that term. So the problem here is that because of digitization and the internet and everything becoming more open and accessible and easy to produce, there are a lot of participants in this market who basically only have one priority, which is making money, and they don't care that much about the original purpose of conferences, which is to further science in general. So if you're unlucky as a young researcher and you don't know really where to look for and don't have maybe that much guidance from your supervisor, you can fall trapped to that and submit the paper or even participate in these kind of conferences. Sometimes they're completely scam if you're very unlucky, or if you're slightly less unlucky. It is kind of a conference happening, but it's definitely not what you expect there. So we want to help researchers with this kind of problem, and our vision for that is to create this platform where we exclusively index conferences which are somewhat trustworthy. And yeah, as you can imagine, this is a difficult problem to tackle, and we are working on a way to identify those conferences. Yeah, I think that's enough to mention there. Yeah, this is, and I won't go into detail into our workflow, how we determine that, but as you can see, it is kind of complex. Yeah, our next use case is that we want to identify unambiguously those conferences, and for that we now chose to allocate DUIs for conferences, which is also helpful for having those conferences indexed, for example, by other research infrastructure providers. So the data registry data site, which gives out those DUIs. If an object has a DUI, other index services are more likely, and for them it's easier to pick up this metadata and include it into their service. And this is, if you press the next slide, yeah. Yeah, this is a blog post we just recently. Oh, this lag's behind. Okay, but just go to the next.
Okay, now it's here.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to read more about how we register DUIs and how we use the metadata schema from DataSite, you can also have a look into this. So yeah, this all culminates into the use case of us wanting to provide this data we create. So all the data we want to have visible and searchable in the platform should be reusable by everyone who wants to. And we want to adhere to the FAIR principles. So those are, we want to make it findable, the data accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And how the data looks now, you will see in the demo we are showing you now. Okay. Down for me. So okay, I'm going to start with the overview of the events. As you can see, we have implemented some search functionalities and filter functionalities.
So this is basically the category page. So we get rid of the standard list of pages that are in a category. So every time when you enter a category page, if it's the series or the events or the academic fields, you always enter up with a drill down like interface. And in this case, as you might recognize, it's a filtered format. This is a little bit tricky because, I mean, we are not talking really about huge amounts of data, but it's already some data. And the filtered format is client-side JavaScript filtering. So that's also the reason why you see here this year's and upcoming events, just to narrow down the amount of data. We have 15,000 at the moment, 15,000 events or so.
Almost 15,000.
Yeah. So this would already increase page load time to an amount that's unacceptable for a user. So we've narrowed down the amount of data a little bit, and we will replace this by good old semantic drill down. We recently reworked this completely. Also, and that's the one reason we didn't do it from the beginning, it doesn't support display title. So this is a no-go because, as you can see later, or maybe disable the full screen. So the events and the event series, everything is UUIDs. So we really completely work with UUIDs and display title. So we have to stick at the moment with the good old filtered format, but then switch to the drill down. That was one of the challenges. But there's a pattern. We always enter a category page, and you don't see it's a category page. It's a filtered page.
Okay, just to give you a short impression about of how those events are described at the moment, so how much of the metadata schema we have implemented yet. There is supposed to be coming a lot more, so a lot more information about an event is supposed to be entered in the future, but currently that's where we're at, basically. So of course we have the acronym and the name here, and then there's always a link to the event series. So we have basically two main entities we describe in this wiki here, which are events and then the event series. So Alexander, do you want to? Yeah, exactly. So this is the event series overview page. As you can see, it has slightly different metadata here, and all events belonging to that series can be found.
Yeah, and the layout is more or less always the same. On the right-hand side, you have the sidebar area where you have the more or less pure facts or key value pairs. And then on the left content side, you have more like lookup data and visualizations and these kind of things. And it's chameleon skin. So if you change the layout, so basically it's bootstrap, so it switches to a one column layout. So it's really mobile ready. That was an important part. Yeah, that's what you get from Chameleon. But the page layout and structure always looks the same on all pages.
It's a short question, Alexander.
Maybe later, or is it?
But then the slide will probably be another slide, right?
Okay.
So if you look at the previous slide, the tags, you mentioned this conference. Would it be logic that the tags will also be what you call the academic fields as tagging, as tags?
Yeah, so the question was if we also use the academic fields as tagging, and probably maybe my impression is everything is a tag there. So you don't have one tag, like putting a tag on it. So it's everything is tags, but in different properties, so to say. So academic field is something we will talk about in a minute or so, but everything else is also tagged, so to say. So it's a collection of tags.
Right.
There is no huge free text to describe the event. I think the old data, maybe that's also worth mentioning it. So the this project has a history, so data is imported and maybe.
Yeah. So we are still facing some struggles with reusing the old data. And for example, regarding the free text, of course, we would like to have, as you can see here, it would be quite fitting also for the design to have a free text here, which, for example, includes the short description of the event. But yeah, we are facing difficulties with including any free text at the moment because of legal difficulties. So as you can imagine, as long as there is a sentence somewhere, it falls in, at least in German law, under copyright laws, because there's someone who created this sentence, and we would have to go to the author and ask for permission to reuse it. Of course, we could expect that everyone who advertises their event on their website and makes creates text like this would want us to reuse it, but to be very sure about it, we would have to get a written permission of that. And this is for the amount we are facing here, that's not feasible for us to do at the moment. Yeah.
Should we show the edit mode?
Yeah,
so,
let's show the edit mode.
It's always the same pattern. So you have a page view, a category page, a page view, and a form. So a regular user might not even see that there's a wiki behind. So everything is driven to the forms with lookup fields and so on. For example, for the event series, if you change the event series or type something in there, it starts looking up. And this is also a little bit of has been a little bit of a challenge because the event series are, how many series?
1,500 more or
so
less.
It's also not that much, but for page forms, you have to switch to remote autocompletion. And you have, again, remote autocompletion working together with display title. And that's what's happening here. That's where we see this gray indicator looking up. That's a visualization that it works. And we have definitely to use concepts everywhere. So we don't have values from category. We have values from concepts to have even one more caching layer. And to create those concepts, I mean, for the series, it's simple, but for the thing we show now with the academic fields, this is also, each academic field gets its own page in ConfIDent. So, but it's open for the user to enter something. So the good old auto-create page, Markus Kretsch developed in a hackathon 10 years, 20 years ago, I don't know. It's far away. So this is used here. And if you enter an academic field that has not been entered before, like SMWCon or something, then it auto-creates an academic field page. And that is, again, the same pattern. You have the category, yada, 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 and so on. So that's, for taxonomy, I think it's the correct word. So you can enter anything. You get proposals what others already entered. And maybe a few words about the mapping with the OECD and stuff.
So first of all, it was important for us to keep this as open as possible, because if we want to include as many researchers from many different disciplines, there is no one controlled vocabulary for academic fields that fits for everybody. So even if you go to our library, for example, and ask 2 different librarians, they will give you 2 different answers for what kind of classification you should use. So it's very difficult to find something, or it's not impossible to find something that fits all, of course, and that's why we also wanted to keep this as open as possible. But in order to have some kind of structure still there, and also to make the data kind of useful at least, and order it, make it more searchable, we decided to create a mapping of sorts, where we included this OECD field of science classification, which is a very, very high level classification, as I can show you. It includes things like computer science and doesn't really go deeper than that. But at least there's some structure, some mapping you can do. And how it works is that you now we are on this page for mobility research, and you could now here choose from this controlled vocabulary of the academic field, field of science classification, a tag, and edit here.
And if there's an update, maybe the FOSGATS release 2025 or so, you can then decide if you want to migrate the old data in this case, or have a separate mapping to keep the old mapping, or if you have a separate, complete different vocabulary, you just add something here. So that's, we call it internally a hybrid approach. So you have a taxonomy, and afterwards you are able to get the curators to map it to something that's more defined like this. And yeah, that's this hybrid here.
And which is also really helpful if we want to include, like Alexander said, more classifications, and if we want to make not only statement of this is a computer science event, but this is maybe an artificial intelligence event. So if you want to go deeper and have other classifications, it's really helpful.
But of course, this needs to be mapped. Maybe we should show the housekeeping switch, okay? Because I mean, people are now entering new terms in this academic field, and the mapping is missing. And there is a team of editors curating these kind of things, and to help them a little bit, that's whoops.
And maybe a few words about the crowdsourcing idea of the platform. So our vision is to make the platform open for everybody who wants to enter new events or wants to edit events. But from history, we know that unmoderated, completely open platforms with this kind of information don't really work, because who are the people who come first and want to include their events? Those are the ones from predatory organizers usually, because they have much of the incentive to advertise their event. And so we need to have an approach where we moderate these entries, and those are the people who Alexander just mentioned. They will be responsible for moderating this kind of thing, and we will have a technical implementation solution for that too. I think it's the extension approved revisions we're looking at the moment.
So that's also with the semantic approved revisions to also approve the semantics part there. So this is both. Yeah, that's basically from the platform perspective. I mean, it's already live. You can browse it. You can read it at the moment. It's not yet opened for a wider audience. This will happen maybe end of this year, I think is the plan.
Yeah, as soon as we are able to have a technical solution for the moderation, I think we will open it.
All right. Then a few words to the technical background. All right. So when I entered the project, there was some constraints that are from the infrastructure of TEP. So they host the whole service, and you cannot just request a VM there and then VPN into that network and so on. So this is really encapsulated. So and yeah, this is a little bit tricky, and so we need to find a way to prepare things and roll out. So this is really a classical DevOps workflow. And I mean, that's not surprising. That's the stack we use. It's MediaWiki with all the things you might expect, like Elastic and so on, a number of extensions, plus the structures for the forms, categories, and so that's the building blocks. But that picture might be more interesting. So that's 4 stages we are working with. And on the left side, that's the public part of it. And then if it comes to the operational part, it gets private. And on the left side, you see Docker. We completely built this thing up also on Docker. I will show a little bit later. This is also available as a GitHub repo. And for tomorrow, we have plans to sit together with Canasta and all the others to see and compare the different approaches here. We try to follow here a really clean approach with making use of the layers Docker can provide, caching and so on. So it starts with a pure minimalistic stack. That's the open research stack. And that's also built on the official MediaWiki Docker image. The idea here is to have a defined starting point for TB for projects that are using SMW. At the moment, it's ConfIDent, but there might be others. Also at TEP, there are a lot of wiki-based projects, would be the same setup, so to say. So you have really a nucleus on the left side. This is the starting point. And then you do not fork this and then mess around with the Docker images there, but you really have your own project repo and build a Docker image based on that Docker image. So you don't mess around with the fork and try to merge back and things. So you really say something like, my project now is based on Open Research Stack version A and B. So, and the operational part, then we get some Ansible magic in because we need to talk to the servers where the Docker stuff gets deployed. So we don't build the farming and stuff into Docker. Docker is just the stack itself. And then the operational part, that's Ansible, and this talks to the servers deploying things. And I will show you how this works. With repo-wise. So the Docker Open Research Stack, I mean, that's super simple. You have Docker Compose. You see this, the services included here. So you have a wiki. You see that's created here. So that's the result of this. Then you have some Elasticsearch in, you have the MySQL and Backstop for visual regression testing. That's the 4 services that are currently running there. There is no traffic and things that comes later in the operational part. That's really just a Docker image. You can run it locally. But if you want to change something, then yeah, you have the Docker file. Also not surprised what you find there. You find the extensions and so on. Let's scroll down a little bit. Okay, we have arrays extension. So we have a little bit of helpers here. Like if it's a GitHub extension, in our base image, we have these helper scripts. So this automatically pulls from standard GitHub locations and doing the installation for you. For Composer, there are some. For private GitHub repos are some. So here you see there is, for example, a little patch for the external data. I think there is something with Postgres. I don't know. Here is a Composer run to install Mermaid and so on. So that's the standard way. The nice thing now is, if I want to update, let's say, Datediff to a new version, I just do it here, maybe on my mobile. I'm on the train, update the version, save it, and then I just build a new release. That's all. So I can switch here. Sorry, I need to go to the text. Draft a new release. 20. Let's do it. And now the GitHub CI process starts building you your image. So you don't have to mess around with checking out the repo, getting whatever infrastructure tools you need, Docker, build tools, Python, whatever. You don't need to have this here because it now in the background uses GitHub CI to build your image. So this takes a little bit. You can watch this. Oh, 4 minutes left anyway. See, it's going through this. Now it's building and publishing the Docker image. And the result is also published here, packages, Open Research Stack. So you can find it on GitHub. So you don't have to mess around with infrastructure here. So here the latest is 0019. So the next layer, layer 2, is the ConfIDent project. So this is more or less the same setup, but as a basis, you now say, this is ConfIDent test, and same Elastic and so on. So you rebuild it basically, backstop and so on. And in the Docker file, you tell them, where did I click now? So same thing. And here the customization comes in. Like for ConfIDent, we have our ConfIDent skin. We have maybe a few other extensions, and that happens here. So you use what's already there in the Open Research Stack, and then just add a few onion rings more. So this makes it super fast, and creating or starting such a landscape with the 4 services takes a few minutes, and that's for development super cool. So 4 minutes, 2 minutes. So the next layer, things become interesting because now we are talking about the operation part. And in the operation part, Ansible comes in. So we have a few playbooks. And to test the playbooks and to develop locally, we put this into a Vagrant box. So we're independent from infrastructure, run our playbooks like up, down, test, update, backup, and all these kind of things. These are all Ansible playbooks. We test it on this layer, on the box layer. And the really fun part, 1 minute left, is here. That's the configuration repo. And in the configuration repo, we have all the secrets because we need to have SSH keys to go into the various destination hosts. And this is stored there. That's the reason why this is not public. That's a private repo. It's because of the secrets. And you have the CI process. So for in this case, our 3 target hosts, you have the versions of the box you want to use. And then you do this. You go into the pipelines, run a pipeline. So it's only 2 files, this repo is really just to store the information about the hosts and the configuration for the pipeline stuff. And now if I want to deploy a new version, I just change the version and then I hit this one here, and it's doing everything for me. So updating, let's say an extension is update Open Research Stack, hit the release, wait until the containers, the image is updated, run 2 further releases, hit the deploy button here, and I'm done in 10 minutes without messing around with login, with accidentally messing the server, whatever. All the shutdown, shut up, everything is done automatically, driven by the CI/CD stuff. And you can watch it here. It takes a little bit. It's refreshing the repo. It's pulling everything. So that's the stack behind it, and it's really clean. There is no super magic in.
One last sentence from you guys.
No, we are done.
We're finished.
I was
this was
about some predatory. So thank you.
Yeah, if you guys have any
questions, I think the questions must be
later,
later or directly. So thank you very much.
Okay.
I am